Hello everyone, so today we're going to be talking about Black Tower, the first boss, or the Venom Skydrake, and we're going to do a tutorial on how to do it. Okay, so I have this video pre-recorded because it's just easier to explain that way. So there are 3 roles for Venom Skydrake. The first one is quite easy. The first one is over here as the tank. It's Kusamo over here. So he's just going to make sure that the boss is facing this way the entire time. The main reason he wants to keep the Venom Drake facing that way is because thus it won't hit the rest of our team, which is over here. So there is a might over here that Kusamo can hit whenever he gets poison stacks to remove the poison stacks. However, this is a small might and it's only for the tank. Thus the tank wants to stand at this position. Over here is the rest of the team. As you can see over here that I've put a heart on top of my head. By putting the heart on top of my head, it means that I am the buff transport. I recommend using the heart symbol because it is the easiest to see out of all these symbols. And then you'll see that over here, later on in the footage, that there is a large might. The large might over here, the buff transport has to hit it, bring it over to the main team, and drop it under them. And that's the main job for the buff carrier, is just to keep the team alive. As for the third role, it's just the people that are all here. You see these players over here? These are the players that are doing the third role. So the third role, all they have to do is DPS the boss over here. So the Venom Skydrake will spawn ads twice. So when he does spawn the ads, it's up to these guys to go stun the minions. So the minions will spawn at the 12 o'clock position over here, the 3 o'clock position, the 6 o'clock, and the 9 o'clock position. So these 4 places, there will be ads. And in order to knock them down, you're going to have to send one person to each ad. And they only have 2 CC bars, and it doesn't matter if you use stun, knockdown, daze, you can use whatever you want. Just make sure that you have 4 people that know that, oh, they have to go to these 4 locations. And that's it. So it's quite simple. I'll roll the clip, and then I will show you important parts, and I'll break it down for you. But let's go. So we can see here that we're starting, and at the beginning, it's quite simple. Just make sure over here, you just want to make sure that your tank starts attacking first so that no one can steal aggro from him. Once he's hit the boss, usually the golden rule we have is let Kusamo or the main tank attack the boss for 3 seconds. We give them 3 seconds to attack, and then after 3 seconds, then we can just go ham on the boss. So you can see here that my character has turned around, and you can see that at this location, there is this big might over here. So this big might is what the buff carrier wants to hit. You can hit it with a range attack, it doesn't matter. And then the moment you hit it, you'll get a buff with a countdown on it. So we will see that now. So you see the moment I hit it, you can see that there's a big red circle around me. And I really need to move my buff bar, but this buff bar, it's covering up a number. There's a number over here, it'll start at 5 seconds and it'll count down and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then this buff will drop right under my feet, which will hit anyone within this red circle radius. And you want the people to be in the radius. So you can see that I'm bringing it over to my team. And usually what we do is we call back left leg is what we usually call it, or back right leg. So usually I will stand right here. Everyone will be able to see my heart symbol. Even if they have Control F, if they've got all the characters hidden, they will still be able to see my symbol. So I want to get as close as possible to the leg so that I can hit, so that the buff will land on the melee characters and the range characters. So you can see here, I'll do a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and here, you can see buff dropped. And once the buff drops over here, you will immediately see that you get this buff right here. You get this buff. So you can see that I got the red buff and it's counting for 15 seconds right here. So for 15 seconds, if I stand in the red circle, I'll gain additional damage. However, there's also a chance of getting a blue circle or a blue buff. If you get the blue buff, you want to get out of the circle, because if you stay in the circle, you get a 50% damage decrease. I think it's 50% or maybe 100%, but you get a huge DPS decrease. So you want to make sure if you have the blue buff, you stand out of this red circle. If you have the red buff, you want to stand in it. So everyone in the party who got this will now get either a red buff or a blue buff. So you can see here that I have the red buff, so I'm standing in the red circle and attacking. At 87%, he spawned ad phase. So you can see that these ads are coming out and the boss will not be targetable. You won't be able to attack the boss. So this is when the 12 o'clock position, the 3 o'clock position, the 6 o'clock position, and the 9 o'clock position. This is when the 4 people split up and knock these down or stun or just CC them. Just make sure it's a double CC because they do have 2 CC bars that are open. Since I'm the buff carrier, normally the buff carrier can take out the 12 o'clock position since it's on the way because the might is over here. So it's on the way. But in my case, since my team we have a lot of gunners, so mobility is not a problem. So everyone will just go do their own thing. Just make sure that you communicate this before starting the raid. That way everyone knows that, oh, who is taking what minion or what ad. That way it's easier that way. And right here, the boss comes back down because all the minions are stunned, and then we can continue DPSing. You can see here that now my red buff just ran out. After red buff runs out, it becomes another 15 seconds of blue buff. So you want to keep in mind that if you have the red buff, you have 30 seconds of poison immunity. However, if you have the blue buff, you only get 15 seconds of poison immunity. And since I'm the buff transport, I need to keep in mind that once this ticks down to about 5 or 4, that I need to start running towards the buff. So you can see here that the blue buff is about to run out. It's down to 2 seconds. At 2 seconds, then I will go hit the might. Technically, you don't have to wait until it's 2 seconds. You can wait until it's 5 seconds. But because I'm not that good at buff transport, I usually wait until we have 2 seconds or 3 seconds before hitting the might. That way, I don't kill anyone in my team. Because when I drop this buff again, if anyone on my team has either blue buff or red buff, they will instantly die if they get another buff. So you have to wait until their buffs have run out and become poison. And then you drop this and then it'll cure them. So you can see here, at 2 stacks, I hit the might. You can see that there's a countdown there. Over here it says 5 seconds. It goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I tell everyone not to move. Boom. You see it drops again, everyone gets the buff. No one died in my party. I got red buff again, so it's another 15 seconds. So again, I want to stay in the red circle because I have red buff. So you can see here, I'm DPSing. And you can see that all the people with red buff technically would want to stay in the red circle to get the AP boost. However, if you have the blue buff, you want to stay out of the circle. So now life blooms, it says here, life blooms appear near the Venom Skydrake. So when life blooms appear, these flowers, these petals will appear. You can see there, right there, that there are, you can see right here that there are flowers. You see that here's a flower, and you can see that here's a flower. So these flowers, if you have the red buff, which in our case, I only have 1 second left, you want to run and grab these if you have the red buff. If you have the blue buff or no buff, you do not want to pick these up because they'll root you in place, and the only way to get out is either by your SS or if you're a gunner, your hook shot. So you can see here that I had 1 second left of the red buff. I was like, go, let's get the flowers before it runs out. But we get there too late, and you can see that it's, running into it did nothing. So what do these flowers do? These flowers shoot out these little green orb things that will actually heal the boss. That's why you want to get rid of them by running over them with the red buff, which in return damages the boss. It won't send these green orbs, it'll send red orbs, which damage the boss. So over here, we just wait until my blue buff runs out, and then I will bring back you see, right here. I have 3 seconds left, and I immediately turn around and I'm going for the might. So you can see over here that I have poison stacks now because my blue buff just ran out. And then I hit the might in order to get the buff so I can drop it on my team. However, you can also see that I stepped on one of these green flowers. Thus, I get rooted. And the only way I can get out is by SS or my hook shot, my E skill. You can see here, I SS. And then now I have the 5 second counter again on my head. You can see that the poison stack stacks pretty quickly. So I have 2 stacks now. Most people can live up to about 5 stacks. Anything more than 5 stacks, you have to be relatively geared, or you have to make sure that you chug potions or iframes. Make sure to always carry fortune potions in this, because it's very important to start chugging potions or using your X or your extended iframe in order to prevent the poison from doing damage to you. That's what the team over here has to do in order to buy time and survive long enough for the buff transport to drop drop the buff under you guys to cure you of the poison. So you can see 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I dropped the buff. So you see we dropped the buff again. I was very lucky. I got red buff immediately. So you can see here with red buff, I stand in the circle, I continue DPSing, and we can see that the life blooms, the flowers are still here. So you see here that I have the red buff, and I'm gonna run straight into the petal, and you can see that the moment I stepped on the petal, I lose my red buff, and I get poisoned immediately. However, the flower becomes a red flower. The red flower will now shoot red orbs at the boss, which will damage the boss instead of healing him. So now as buff transport, I need to pay special attention to my poison stacks over here because there are people that got blue buffs and not red buffs. The red buff people will be able to do the flower mechanic. So after you stepped on the flower, you'll lose your red buff and you won't get a blue buff. It'll immediately go into poison stacks. So as the buff carrier, you want to make sure, you want to communicate with your team to make sure that your team, the people with the blue buffs, have, when they are at 5 seconds left on the blue buff, or 4 seconds if you want to be extra safe, you go hit the might. Only then you can drop the buff on top of your entire team and not kill anyone. So you can see here that at this instance, I'm communicating with my team. I'm asking them blue buffs, how many seconds left? And they would tell me, oh, we have 5 seconds left, we have 4 seconds left. So over here, they told me they had 4 seconds left on their blue buff. So I turned around and I was gonna go hit the might now. So you can see I hit the might. So I've got 5 seconds and I'm running towards the back left leg again. While I'm running, I'm calling out. I'm telling my team, I'm bringing the buff to the left back leg and I'm gonna drop it there. Thus everyone knows that, okay, the buff is dropping. Everyone gathers around and boom, I dropped the buff again, and you can see that I got the red buff. So over here you can see that it's ad phase, you know, he's spawning, these guys will come up. Usually when it's ad phase, he'll jump up into the air, and another thing that's a big tell that it's ad phase is you won't be able to shoot the boss. So now you can see that the ads are here, so again, it's going to be the 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, the 6 o'clock, and the 9 o'clock, 4 ads. Just make sure you knock them down, or you stun them, or you just double CC them. So you can see there that we have trigger over here that is CCing the 9 o'clock position. So once they're CC'd, the boss will flop down on the ground and it will say that the Venom Skydrake's body swells as the dark chi consumes him. And he'll be on the floor stunned and he won't be able to do anything. So this is a good time to use your big spells and to burst if you can. And just make sure as buff transport, you always want to pay attention to your buffs over there. You can see that I originally had the red buff and then it was 15 seconds of red buff and then went to blue buff and I had another 15 seconds of blue buff. But you can see over here I'm running out. I've got 2 seconds left. So for the people who have blue buff, they're already poisoned pretty heavily. So I gotta go pick up the might and help them. See. So you can see here that I'm picking up the buff and then everyone's standing on the left back leg already because I called out before that I am going to the left back leg. So here I'm picking it up, but you can see that the boss jumped immediately right before I have dropped the buff. So at this moment I tell everyone don't move, don't move, don't move. Thus everyone knows that, okay, we just need to stand in this position and, you know, the buff carrier will save us. So here I'm counting down. 3, 2, 1, boom. I dropped the buff on the team again, and I was very lucky, and again, I got the red buff. So here it says, life blooms appear near the Venom Skydrake. This is the flower phase again. So once the flowers pop up, the people with red buff have to run into the flowers. So you can see that I have red buff, I have 3 seconds left. So I see a flower there and a flower there. However, if you play a gunner or a player with high mobility, you really want to pick up the flowers that are further away from you. So you can see that I saw this flower and I picked it up, and then Trigger over here picked up the flower next to him. However, the problem was we have Jay over here who couldn't pick up these 2 flowers. So his red buff ran out. So you can see that me and Nate both are poisoned now. However, Jay over here now has a blue buff because he didn't pick up a flower in time. So you can see here that I have poison stacks. However, Jay still has a blue buff. So he still has 15 seconds of a blue buff. So over here, I call out that I'm going to pick up the buff again. And I'm telling my team, people with blue buff, do not stand at the left back leg because I'm going to drop the buff and if you have the blue buff, you're going to instantly die. So you can see here that I picked up the buff, and then I called out that I'm going to drop it on the right back leg. So everyone's going to group up at me on the right back leg. However, at the same time, I'm also telling my team, players with blue buff, do not stand next to me because it's going to kill them. So you can see that I'm going to drop the buff. And the moment I drop the buff, you can see that I got a blue buff this time, but Jay dies because he still had a couple seconds left on his blue buff. So you see here that since I have the blue buff, I do not want to stand in the red circle. So again, we continue DPSing. So players, here we need to call out that players with the red buffs have to go pick up the remaining flowers. Since we three players over here only have blue buffs, we want to just stand here and wait until we get poison stacks again. So you can see that these red circles are popping up at the side. This is again ad phase. So again, it's going to be the 12 o'clock, the 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock positions. So we tell the team that, oh, it's ad phase, I'm going to pick up the buff after ad phase. That way everyone can get the buff. You can see that once the Venom Skydrake's body swells as the Dark Chi consumes him, this is when you know that everyone CC'd the ads and the boss is now attackable again. So now I'm going to go pick up the buff. So here I pick up the buff. Again, I'm calling out, I'm dropping on the left back leg. So you can see here that I have 6 stacks and it's really starting to hurt. So now I'm telling everyone I'm going to drop it on the left back leg. So I'm coming left back leg. You can see here that I used my X skill and I also drank a potion. So you can see the potion healed me a lot. And then the X buys me another 5 seconds of immunity to the poison damage. That way, when the boss does anything stupid, I won't die. It's very important that the buff transporter does not die, because if you die, you screw over the entire team really bad. You can see here that I dropped the buff and I got very lucky and I got red buff again. So we're standing here and we DPS. You can see that my teammates called out KD and we KD'd the boss. So you can see here that my blue buff has 2 seconds left, and originally I had the red buff. So now it's 100% safe that I can go hit the might and prepare to drop it. So here I hit the might, I turn around, I tell the team I'm going to drop it at the left back leg. So we run there, but you can see that we KD'd the boss and now it's his head over here. Again, I tell the team, don't move, don't move, don't move. So now everyone knows I'm going to drop it there. He stands back up. You can see it's still at the back left leg. And I drop the buff. Boom. You can see that I got the blue buff here, but then the flowers have spawned again. So again, the players with the red buffs need to go step on the flowers. So here I'm DPSing while my teammates go step on the flowers. You can see that my blue buff has 2 seconds left again, and I'm going to hit the might. You don't have to wait for your blue buff to hit 2 seconds. A lot of good buff transports wait till about 5 seconds or 4 seconds and then they go hit the might. This is, it's better to do it that way because thus a lot more lesser geared players will survive. However, my raid is relatively well geared already, so it was not too much of a problem. And as a buff transport, I'm not very good at it. However, for the sake of the video and the sake of my guild, I do the buff transport. So you can see here that I usually do it at 2 seconds. However, if you're better at timing, or if you play on low ping, or if you're just a better player in general, you can do 3 seconds or 4 seconds or even 5 seconds. 5 seconds is cutting it really marginal. Like, there's a chance you might kill your teammates. However, if you're excellent at timing, 5 seconds is ideal. So, I mean, personally, I'm just bad at the game, so I do it at 2 seconds. See here, I hit the might, and I'm bringing it over. Over here, I'm calling right back leg. So everyone comes here, right back leg to 1 drop. And you can see that I got red buff. And now I want to run into a flower. So you can see here, there's a flower, but Rin takes that, so I take this far flower. However, by then, the boss is already dead. So that was it. So you can see here that I was a dumbass. I was raid leader, but I forgot to set master loot. So I needed to quickly click over here, change it to master loot. To change to master loot is quite simple. You click on the knob over here, this alliance setting will pop up, and you click master loot, you click on that button, and then you select your name. You can see here that I need to select myself and click OK, and that's it. Thus it's master loot. As for how master loot works, it's quite simple. You go up to the box, you press F, and then this menu will come up. So when this menu comes up, there is what we call a bidding phase. We usually bid for items, or if you guys have a different point system or a different system, you do that. And then so all you have to do is, for example, here is a lightning ring, I think. So if anyone needs the lightning ring, people will bid or use whatever system. And let's say that Kusumo wins it. So I would click on the lightning ring, I'll click on Kusumo's name, and I would say distribute. And it will immediately send this item to Kusumo. And same goes with all the other items. And then if you want to find a player but you can't find him by clicking on view all available classes, you can just search by Blade Masters only, Kung Fu Masters only, etc. It's a pretty simple system. Just make sure whatever you do, please do not press the grant permission to all, or else this basically makes it a free-for-all and anyone can loot the items. And that's about it. So that's the first boss, Venom Skydrake, in a nutshell. Anyway, I hope this video helped, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
What can I say except you're welcome for the heat?